The world of modern reality television has always operated on a delicate balance between authentic human emotion and highly combustible social environments, creating a unique cultural phenomenon that captivates millions of viewers around the globe. Among the most fascinating manifestations of this genre are the programs that isolate a core group of individuals within a specific, high-stakes setting, allowing the natural friction of shared lives, historical grievances, and evolving ambitions to play out before an unyielding array of cameras. For years, audiences have tuned in to witness the grand tradition of summer escapism, where affluent, ambitious individuals leave behind the grinding routine of their metropolitan lives to seek refuge in luxurious coastal enclaves. These pristine seasonal getaways, characterized by sun-drenched afternoons, extravagant backyard gatherings, and an underlying current of hedonistic freedom, are meticulously designed to foster an atmosphere of relaxation and uninhibited celebration. However, as any seasoned observer of contemporary media understands, the promise of an idyllic summer sanctuary is frequently an illusion, serving instead as a magnificent pressure cooker where long-standing relationships are systematically tested, rewritten, or entirely destroyed under the weight of unforeseen betrayals. The setting itself becomes an active participant in the unfolding drama, as the stark contrast between the beautiful, serene environment and the increasingly chaotic interpersonal dynamics creates an intoxicating narrative tension that keeps audiences perpetually on the edge of their seats. This specific subgenre of television does not merely document the leisure activities of the privileged. It chronicles the fragile architecture of adult friendships and the devastating consequences that occur when the boundaries of loyalty are completely shattered. Within this sprawling landscape of televised social experiments, certain franchises have managed to elevate themselves above the rest by cultivating an exceptionally passionate and deeply invested global community of followers. The unique appeal of these specific shows lies in the perception of genuine, foundational history among the cast members, an element that distinguishes them from more artificial dating or competition-based programs where participants are complete strangers thrown together for brief periods. When a group of people possesses years of shared memories, professional collaborations, and overlapping romantic histories, the stakes of their daily interactions are magnified exponentially, transforming seemingly minor disagreements into monumental shifts that can completely destabilize an entire social circle. Viewers do not simply watch these individuals for entertainment, they form profound parasocial connections with them, analyzing every subtle glance, cryptic social media post, and whispered conversation in an attempt to decode the underlying truth of their relationships. This intense level of scrutiny creates an environment where secrets are nearly impossible to keep, and where the boundary between private life and public consumption is permanently blurred. For seasons on end, the collective fanbase celebrates the triumphs of these reality television icons and mourns the dissolution of their partnerships, establishing a collective cultural memory that mirrors the complexities of real-world social circles. Yet, even within a genre defined by its unpredictability and constant emotional volatility, there are rare moments when an event occurs that is so profound, so entirely unprecedented, that it completely reshapes the trajectory of the franchise and leaves both the audience and the network executives completely stunned. Before we unpack the specific details of the massive shift currently rocking this tight-knit community, if you want to stay informed on every major development in the entertainment world, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and join our growing community of dedicated pop culture analysts who never miss a single update. The current television landscape is currently reeling from the aftershocks of just such a monumental shift, a controversy so deeply rooted in personal betrayal and fractured loyalties that it has effectively altered the future of one of the most successful docuseries on modern television. For months, speculative rumors had been circulating through various media outlets, internet forums, and fan communities, suggesting that a major structural upheaval was occurring behind the scenes of a beloved summer-centric production. This particular franchise, known for its explosive seasonal finales and the deeply interconnected lives of its participants, has survived numerous cast changes and dramatic conflicts over its lengthy run. But nothing could have prepared the audience for the total collapse of trust that defined its most recent iteration. What began as a whisper network among dedicated internet sleuths gradually transformed into a torrent of mainstream media reports, all pointing toward a catastrophic breakdown in communication between the show's core figures and the production company responsible for bringing their lives to the screen. The tension surrounding the production became so palpable that it began to bleed into the public sphere long before any official footage was scheduled to air, with insiders dropping tantalizing hints about unprecedented emotional fallout and shattered alliances that could never be repaired. The sheer scale of the brewing storm created an atmosphere of intense anticipation, as millions of dedicated followers realized that the comfortable, familiar dynamics they had watched evolve over several years were being systematically dismantled in real time, leaving the entire future of the series hanging in a state of absolute uncertainty. The true gravity of the situation began to materialize during the highly anticipated recording of the traditional post-season retrospective, an event that is historically known for forcing cast members to confront their actions but rarely results in the complete psychological exhaustion of everyone involved. Reports from behind the scenes indicated that the atmosphere during this particular taping was uniquely hostile, characterized by a level of raw, unfiltered emotion that went far beyond the typical theatrical arguments associated with reality television. Even the seasoned television's executives and network figures who have spent decades mediating complex celebrity conflicts were left visibly shaken by the intensity of the confrontation, publicly stating that the emotional damage inflicted upon the group was entirely real, deeply devastating, and unlike anything the network had witnessed in over a decade. The sheer exhaustion felt by those directing the conversation served as a stark warning to the public that the upcoming broadcast would not merely offer standard entertainment, but would instead document the genuine, painful dissolution of a real social fabric. As the leaked audio and fragments of information continued to permeate the media landscape, the focus of the entire controversy began to narrow down to a single shocking realization regarding the upcoming filming schedule, specifically concerning the traditional midsummer holiday weekend that has historically served as the cornerstone of the entire production. It became increasingly clear that a permanent line had been crossed, and that one of the most prominent, central figures of the recent seasons would be conspicuously absent when the cameras finally began to roll again, signaling the end of an era and the beginning of a massive, unfolding media scandal that we will explore in meticulous detail. The unsettling silence that had enveloped the production community was finally shattered in the most unexpected of venues, transforming vague internet speculation into an undeniable reality that has sent shockwaves through the entire entertainment landscape. West Wilson, the 31-year-old personality who had rapidly ascended to become a central pillar of the Summer House narrative since his initial arrival in Season 8, chose a casual appearance on the popular digital media program The Broadcast Boys to finally confirm the devastating news that had been circulating through the industry grapevine. For weeks, various high-profile entertainment outlets, including major publications like the Daily Mail and TMZ, had been aggressively pursuing leads regarding Wilson's status for the highly anticipated 11th season of the hit Bravo series. When the hosts of the digital show began to conduct an aggressive, deep-dive analysis into the catastrophic fallout of his recent personal life, the conversation inevitably drifted toward the persistent rumors of his professional termination, forcing the reality star to drop his defensive posture. Visibly sheepish and clearly burdened by the immense public scrutiny that has come to define his life over the past several months, Wilson quietly acknowledged that the reports were entirely accurate, admitting that while he had desperately hoped to control the narrative and share the news on his own terms, his journey with the franchise had reached a sudden and definitive conclusion. His departure represents a massive, unprecedented disruption for the network, particularly given that the decision was finalized just as the production team was preparing to initiate principal photography over the highly lucrative and symbolically vital Independence Day holiday weekend. To truly understand the sheer magnitude of this development, one must examine the intricate, high-stakes web of personal relationships that Wilson systematically dismantled during his relatively brief but incredibly chaotic tenure on the show. When Wilson joined the cast during the 8th season, he was initially embraced as a refreshing, charismatic addition to a long-standing group of friends who desperately needed new energy to revitalize their summer dynamics. However, the initial optimism surrounding his inclusion completely evaporated during the most recent cycle of filming, when he found himself squarely at the center of a monumental, season-defining scandal that completely shattered the fragile peace of the house. The controversy erupted when Wilson entered into a deeply complicated, highly secretive romantic entanglement with 34-year-old Amanda Batula, a founding member of the series whose entire identity had been publicly intertwined with the franchise for nearly a decade. What made this relationship uniquely explosive, and what many viewers and castmates have openly categorized as an unpardonable act of social betrayal, was the profound historical context binding the individuals involved. Amanda Batula was not merely an unattached participant exploring a new romantic connection. She was the longtime partner and former wife of Kyle Cooke, who happened to be one of Wilson's closest and most vocal champions within the house. Furthermore, the situation was compounded by an additional layer of interpersonal devastation, as Batula maintained a fiercely loyal, years-long friendship with Ciara Miller, an iconic cast member who had previously engaged in a highly publicized, emotionally turbulent on-and-off relationship with Wes Wilson himself. The immediate fallout from this romantic revelation was nothing short of catastrophic, completely blindsiding the core members of the social group and dividing the house into deeply polarized, warring factions that could no longer tolerate being in the same room together. Kyle Cooke, who had spent years building a shared life with Batula while simultaneously welcoming Wilson into his inner circle as a trusted confidant, found himself utterly devastated by what he perceived as a calculated, double-edged knife to the back from two of the most important people in his universe. Simultaneously, Ciara Miller was forced to confront the deeply painful reality that her close friend and her former romantic partner had been operating behind her back, violating the fundamental rules of loyalty that had preserved the group's stability for multiple seasons. Despite the growing wave of intense online speculation, aggressive fan tracking, and palpable real-world tension that began to bleed into their public appearances, the controversial couple attempted to maintain a united front against the mounting criticism. In March of this year, after weeks of suffocating scrutiny and relentless media inquiries, Wes Wilson and Amanda Batula finally issued a joint public statement in a desperate attempt to provide clarity and mitigate the immense reputational damage they were actively sustaining across the sprawling Bravo cinematic universe. In their careful, why-constructed, emotionally defensive public address, the couple openly acknowledged the massive wave of online speculation that had been dominating social media algorithms, claiming that while the relationship was still incredibly fresh and fragile, they felt an absolute obligation to speak directly to their audience. They insisted that it had never been their deliberate intention to purposefully hide their evolving connection from their friends or the public, but argued that the incredibly complicated relationship dynamics involved, combined with the ruthless, unyielding scrutiny that naturally accompanies a high-profile reality television show, had forced them to seek a temporary private space to process their feelings before inviting the world into their confidence. The statement went on to describe their romantic development as the absolute last thing either of us expected, attempting to reframe the controversial pairing as a natural, organic evolution born out of a genuine, long-standing friendship that they had initially tried to approach with the utmost care and sensitivity. They maintained that as their feelings continued to evolve over time, they simply required an isolated period to understand the true nature of what they were experiencing, while simultaneously recognizing that their unconventional actions had achieved an undeniable, deeply painful impact far beyond just the two of them. They concluded their message by stating that they never wanted their behavior to cause any genuine hurt or to be perceived as careless by those they loved, expressing a hollow appreciation for the public's understanding and respect as they attempted to navigate the wreckage of their social circle. However, the carefully managed public relations narrative put forward in their joint statement stood in stark, irreconcilable contrast to the raw, unadulterated hostility that awaited the couple when they were finally forced to face the music from their deeply betrayed castmates during the taping of the seasonal reunion. This traditional post-season gathering, which is historically designed to provide closure for the viewers and the participants, had already been thoroughly plagued with unprecedented production drama long before a single frame was ever scheduled to air, primarily due to a massive, highly damaging security breach that resulted in raw audio from the highly confidential taping being leaked to the public. The leaked fragments of audio provided a shocking preview of the absolute psychological warfare that took place on the couches, revealing a level of crying, screaming, and genuine emotional devastation that left the entire production crew thoroughly exhausted. The sheer intensity of this specific reunion was later verified by none other than Andy Cohen, the ultimate maestro of the network's reality television empire, who utilized an appearance at the prestigious Newport Beach TV Fest to publicly contextualize the sheer scale of the historical event. Cohen, who has spent decades directing some of the most combative, aggressive, and sensationalized reunion episodes in the history of modern television, did not mince words when describing the psychological toll of this particular taping, openly declaring to a stunned audience that the Summer House reunion easily ranks among the top 10 most intensely volatile and uncomfortable reunions the network has ever produced in its entire corporate history. The veteran host and network executive went on to emphasize that the profound emotional damage inflicted upon this specific group of individuals would be painfully clear to every single viewer when the final, multi-part reunion episodes finally make their way to the airwaves. Cohen stressed to the media and the public that unlike other reality television programs where cast members are essentially co-workers who only interact during active filming windows, this particular group operates as a real, authentic, deeply interconnected social circle outside of their television obligations, which made the underlying betrayal infinitely more devastating to witness. He described the core cast as being completely rocked, thoroughly devastated, and emotionally hollowed out by the sheer reality of the fractures that had formed within their friendships, noting that the pain on display was not a theatrical performance for the cameras, but a very real, deeply tragic manifestation of human heartbreak. Cohen admitted that the sheer toxic energy and emotional weight of the confrontation was so overwhelming that, when the taping finally concluded, he left the set feeling truly spent, physically and mentally exhausted by the sheer effort required to simply direct the conversation without being swallowed up by the immense sadness permeating the room. This unprecedented level of executive acknowledgement only served to solidify the public's understanding that the franchise had reached a point of absolute no return, setting the stage for the administrative decisions that would ultimately seal Wes Wilson's fate within the network. The total institutional fallout from this monumental breakdown of personal and professional trust became explicitly clear in the days following the explosive reunion taping, as the production network was forced to make a definitive structural decision regarding the upcoming season. While the initial reporting from major entertainment outlets like TMZ indicated that Wes Wilson's contract had deliberately not been renewed for the 11th season, the broader implications of his absence have completely rewritten the playbook for the future of the entire series. For a franchise that has historically relied on the illusion of a tight-knit, unbreakable group of metropolitan professionals reuniting every summer, the definitive exclusion of a central narrative figure like Wilson represents a massive corporate gamble. According to insider sources closely tied to the production, network executives were deeply concerned that forcing the remaining cast members into a shared living space with Wilson so soon after the devastating emotional collapse of the reunion would create an entirely unworkable, overly toxic environment that would completely alienate the audience. The decision to cut him from the primary roster was finalized just as the crew began setting up the extensive camera arrays and production infrastructure at the traditional luxury estate ahead of the Independence Day holiday weekend, which has always served as the chaotic, high-stakes kickoff for the summer filming schedule. Although those same insiders have hinted that there remains a very slim, highly controversial possibility that Wilson might make a brief, highly orchestrated cameo appearance later in the season to tie up loose narrative ends, his era as a permanent, dominant force within the house has officially come to an end. To fully comprehend why this specific departure has caused such an unprecedented crisis for the network, one must analyze the remarkable and highly tumultuous journey that Wes Wilson experienced during his brief, multi-season arc. Entering the franchise in Season 8 as a relatively unknown quantity, Wilson initially presented himself as the ultimate relatable everyman, a sports media professional with a self-deprecating sense of humor and an easygoing charm that instantly endeared him to a fan base that had grown exhausted by years of cyclical, repetitive arguments among the veteran cast. His rapid rise to prominence was accelerated by his highly publicized, deeply emotional on-and-off romantic relationship with Ciara Miller, a fan-favorite cast member whose fiercely loyal supporters fiercely championed the pairing as the next great love story of reality television. Throughout that initial season, Wilson expertly navigated the complex social hierarchies of the house, positioning himself as a loyal, dependable friend to long-standing male leaders like Kyle Cooke, while simultaneously building an independent reputation as a charismatic, trustworthy confidant to the rest of the group. This carefully cultivated public image made his subsequent pivot towards secrecy and ultimate betrayal all the more shocking to the collective consciousness of the viewers, who felt a profound sense of personal investment in his success. By shifting his romantic focus from Miller to Amanda Batula, Wilson did not just change his relationship status, he systematically violated the foundational, unwritten social contracts that had kept this complex group of friends functioning under the intense spotlight of international television for nearly a decade. The true tragedy of this unfolding media scandal lies in the total, seemingly permanent destruction of the legendary friendship that had existed between Amanda Batula and Ciara Miller, two women who had spent years supporting one another through the intense, unique pressures of public life. For multiple seasons, their bond had been viewed by the audience as an unshakable pillar of stability within a house that was constantly plagued by shifting alliances and fleeting romantic entanglements. They had celebrated major personal milestones together, defended one another against external criticism, and built a profound level of mutual trust that many believed was completely immune to the standard pitfalls of reality television drama. However, when Batula made the conscious decision to explore a secret, evolving connection with the very man who had recently broken Miller's heart on national television, that foundational trust was instantly obliterated, leaving behind a wake of bitterness and resentment that insiders claim will never be resolved. The total collapse of their relationship serves as a stark, sobering reminder of how quickly years of shared history and genuine affection can be entirely erased when personal desires conflict with the rigid boundaries of sisterly loyalty. The profound grief and sense of isolation resulting from this betrayal have deeply affected both women, with production sources reporting that the former best friends completely refused to acknowledge each other's presence during the entire duration of the recent reunion taping, signaling a permanent end to one of the most beloved dynamics in the history of the show. Equally devastating is the profound structural damage inflicted upon the life and career of Kyle Cooke, a foundational pioneer of the franchise who now finds himself forced to navigate the painful wreckage of both his personal and professional worlds. Cooke had spent the better part of a decade building a highly publicized life with Amanda Batula, a journey that included a rocky engagement, a lavish televised wedding, and a highly complex business partnership that deeply intertwined their financial futures. Throughout those tumultuous years, Cooke had also established a reputation as a fiercely loyal friend who frequently went out of his way to welcome newcomers like West Wilson into the inner sanctum of the house, offering them professional advice, personal support, and an immediate sense of belonging within the tight-knit group. To be simultaneously betrayed by the woman he had committed his life to and the man he had embraced as a true brother within the house represents a psychological blow that has left Cooke completely unmoored. Friends close to the veteran reality star have expressed deep concern over his current emotional state, noting that he feels utterly humiliated by the public nature of the scandal and deeply betrayed by the network's initial inability to prevent the devastating narrative from unfolding behind his back. As principal photography begins for the 11th season without Wilson, Cooke is forced to return to the very house where these betrayals took place, confronting the painful ghosts of his past while attempting to rebuild his life from the ground up under the unyielding gaze of millions of critical viewers. As the production team officially moves forward with filming the highly anticipated 11th season over the crucial Independence Day weekend, the atmosphere surrounding the entire enterprise remains deeply anxious and thoroughly unpredictable. The absence of Wes Wilson will undoubtedly create a massive echoing void in the daily dynamics of the house, forcing the remaining cast members to completely reevaluate their own positions, alliances, and personal boundaries. For the first time in several years, the show is entering a production cycle without a clear, established narrative trajectory, as the core group is so profoundly fractured that even the simple act of planning a collective dinner or a weekend gathering requires an immense amount of strategic negotiation by the producers. The network is currently facing intense pressure from a deeply divided fan base, with some viewers fiercely demanding a total boycott of the upcoming season due to the unfair treatment of beloved veterans like Ciara and Kyle, while others remain absolutely transfixed by the sheer train wreck potential of the remaining fallout. Ultimately, this massive reality television scandal has transcended the boundaries of standard weekend entertainment, evolving into a fascinating, deeply cautionary tale about the fragile nature of modern celebrity, the heavy price of personal ambition, and the devastating permanent consequences that occur when real human emotions are systematically exploited for public consumption.